Good evening, everyone. When I was invited to give this talk, I thought a lot about what I should say. And I started by thinking, if I were sitting in your seats as an 18-year-old junior college student, what do I know now that I wish I had known then? And that very much is the inspiration for my talk. So let's go back to 18-year-old Sam. 18-year-old Sam had only one dream, which is to pursue an undergraduate studies overseas. I remember visiting London for the first time when I was 14 and thinking, and going to the theatres and saying, if going to the theatres here is like going to the movies in Singapore, this is exactly what I want for my life. This is what I want to study, this is how I want to pursue my undergraduate education. So I had a plan. Sam's life plan at 18 was to get a scholarship, study politics, philosophy, and economics in Oxford, start a career in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then be an awesome diplomat with a high-flying career. In reality, what actually happened was that I did not get a scholarship. I studied locally. I turned down the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and my future is very much unknown. Yet at the same time, my life now is far better than it would have been if I had followed my plan. I have lived and worked abroad. I have discovered my true passion. I'm also now leading a pioneering non-profit organization. And while my future is still very much unknown, it is also filled with possibilities and potential. So the real question is, how did I get here and what did I learn? So I remember being 19 years old, and it was March of 2009, and I went in to collect my A-level results. So all my teachers had predicted that I would get straight A's, and I didn't expect any less. But when I turned over that piece of paper and looked down, my heart sank. I saw 2 C's. My friend very happily bounded up to me excitedly and said, "Oh, so how many A's did you get?" I remember in that moment bursting into tears. So that's when I also realized that I spent the next 2 weeks just crying and being depressed and saying, where is my life going now? I felt that my dreams have gone up in smoke and I didn't know where else to go. So my teacher, who had gotten quite tired of my wallowing in self-pity, pulled me aside and said, "What's changed?" And I was going to launch into my long charade about how, everything has changed and I can no longer pursue my dreams. And looked at me straight in the face and said, "What's changed about you? Are you any less intelligent than you were 2 weeks ago? Are you less capable?" And said, "Why are you letting a piece of paper dictate what you can do?" And that for me was a very powerful message, because that's when I realized that the best laid plans can go awry, but failing doesn't make you a failure. So the second lesson that I learned is that you can look back and say what if, or you can look forward and say what next. Eventually I got accepted into 2 schools, the National University of Singapore as well as the University of Sydney. And so I was trying to decide between the 2 of them. I found it quite difficult. Should I stay and study in NUS, or should I go abroad and pursue what I thought was an overseas education that I have always wanted, but at 4 times the cost? And I remember my mom sitting me down and said, "Sam, I know you always wanted to go overseas and I know that's your dream. I can help you do it. We just need to sell the house." So, faced with a decision like that, I decided to study in NUS. But at the same time, I told myself that if I was going to make a choice, I want to do it with certainty. I don't want to look back every single day, or week, or month, always thinking and wondering, what if? What if I gone overseas? What if I had done better for A-levels? What if my life had turned out differently? So I made a conviction to myself and I said, if I'm going to go to NUS, I'm going to make the best use of the opportunities there. I'm going to do everything that I possibly can, and to learn everything that I can, and to use everything that the school can offer me. And I did. That's how eventually I managed to win a scholarship to go overseas for a year to study at Yale College. So that's really something where we can all learn that you can always look back and say, what if this, or what if that? Or we can always look forward and say, what next? And to use every opportunity we can to do the best that we can. So the third thing that I learned is that you can be fixated on your dreams, or you can discover new ones. So when I graduated from NUS and I was looking for a job, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was one of the places that I applied to. Eventually, they gave me a job offer. And I was sitting there thinking about it. I realized that while this was a chance for me to get my life back on track and to follow my plans that I had when I was 18 years old, I realized that that's not what I want anymore. That those dreams that I had when I was 18 no longer applied to who I was at 23. That all the years of experiences, that going through new things and seeing new things, has changed who I am. That my dreams now were bigger than just being a diplomat or flying to new places. It was a lot about how I can use economic principles to help the less privileged. How I was interested in international development. How I was interested in the economy and how international relations work, but in the setting of being able to lift up the poor. So this was something that I realized that, yes, well, NFA gave me a chance to get my life back on track, so to speak, but that's not what I want anymore. And that's where we really learned, I learned, that we can be fixated on your dreams, or you can allow yourself to discover new ones. So the fourth lesson that I learned is that you can stick with what is safe, or you can do what feels right. So I eventually joined the Ministry of Trade and Industry, looking at how the economy can be used for good. And I greatly enjoyed my time there. But at the same time, there was always a voice at the back of my head saying that you can do more. I want to do more. And I thought back to when I felt like I was most fulfilled and I was the happiest, and when I felt that my life was most meaning. And I realized that it was a time in university when I was involved with Conjunct Consulting as a volunteer. I remember the first project that I did with them, and I was working with non-profit organizations that helps people with disabilities find employment. And they approached Conjunct saying that, oh, could you help us find a way to generate new income, a new revenue source, as well as be able to give our clients a chance to do some vocational training. So we did some research for them and we came up with a business plan that eventually led to 6 months later the launch of the cafe in IMH. And you guys should go check it out if you have time. And that was when I realized that how many people get that chance? How many 21-year-olds get the chance to make such real impact and to be able to help people do better and help more beneficiaries? How many people get the chance to be able to be involved in the social sector in such a meaningful way? And that's when I also realized that what I really wanted to do in my life was to be able to give more people that chance, to bring more people into the social sector and allow them to see the change that they want, that they can create, and to give them the desire to do so. So lucky for me, earlier this year, when the former president of Conjunct told me that he was leaving, he also told me, Sam, I think this could be a good opportunity for you, and I think this is aligned with what you want. Why don't you consider applying for presidency? I went through the process, and I was the lucky person out of 70 other people to finally get the job. So having told the story so far, I felt like it would have been a no-brainer. But when I was facing a decision on whether or not to leave MTI, which would have been a very safe option, it's an iron-rice bowl, I knew what the trajectory looked like, I was familiar with the work, or to jump and to join a non-profit, which in many Singaporean terms is a far riskier option. I was faced with a dilemma. It wasn't an easy choice. But at the same time, I thought to myself, I could stick with what is safe, and to keep doing what I know I could do, or I could take that leap of faith, and to do what I've always wanted to do, and to create the change that I wanted to create. So eventually, that's what I did. I took the leap, and here I am now, giving you this talk. So it's really that you can stick with what is safe, or you can do what feels right. And I just want to add on the last bit about that point is that, having been in this job for a few months now, I can say that there is a very special feeling that comes from knowing when you're in the right place and where you're meant to be. And if I had any advice for all of you, it would be to that if you knew what you want to do, hold up for it and have that courage to do it. So the last point and last lesson that I learned through my life is that you can worry about where life takes you, or you can learn to enjoy the ride. So if you think back to the 18-year-old plan that Sam had, and think about all the different checklists that I had and all the different plans I said, no, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and how different my life has turned out. Along the points in the way, there were times of anxiety when I thought, where is my life going? What is happening? And I'm not going to lie, it is worrying. But looking back now, I realize that there were moments that these moments of pain were followed by moments of joy. That being able to be happy, to be able to look at for new opportunities was something that gave me immense joy. So the lesson here is really that you can either worry about where life takes you, or you can learn to enjoy the ride. So Steve Jobs once said, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So if you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. So looking at all the different dots in my life, I didn't get a scholarship, but that allowed me to go to NUS and eventually gave me the impetus to apply for many things, out of which was a chance to go and live and work abroad. I studied locally, which was a deviance from what I originally planned, but that allowed me to be involved in Conjunct and allowed me to, through that experience, discover what my true passion was. Eventually, I turned down the job offer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but at the same time, that allowed me to eventually take that leap of faith and join the non-profit organization that allows me to then be in a role that brings more young people and more working professionals into the social sector. So all the different disparate points in my life has taught me that I could never see where my life is going to end up if I was just looking forward. But looking back now, I can see how the different dots connect. So if you believe that failing doesn't make you a failure, and if you choose to say what's next instead of what if you allow yourself to discover new dreams, and if you have the courage to do what feels right, and lastly, if you learn to enjoy the ride, you will end up where you're meant to be. Thank you.